Before the Buddha became enlightened, he discovered one terrifying truth about human beings. Most people destroy their own lives, not because of enemies, not because of failure, but because of the voice inside their own minds. A voice that constantly whispers, "You are not enough. You will never succeed. You are too weak to change." And if you do not learn to control that voice, it will quietly control your entire life. But Buddhist monks have practiced a powerful method for centuries, a method that can destroy self-doubt, silence fear, and make your mind unshakably strong. Today you will learn the 7 Buddhist lessons that can completely transform the way you think, feel, and live. Watch until the end, because lesson number 7 is the one that changes everything. Lesson 1. Your mind is not always telling the truth. One of the greatest discoveries the Buddha made was that human suffering does not begin in the outside world. It begins inside the mind. Most people spend their entire lives believing every thought that appears in their heads without ever questioning whether those thoughts are actually true. The mind says, "You are weak," and they believe it. The mind says, "You will fail," and they surrender before even trying. The mind says, "You are not worthy of love, success, peace, or happiness," and slowly they build an entire identity around fear and limitation. But the Buddha taught something deeply powerful. The mind is not always a reliable narrator of reality. Thoughts are temporary mental events, not absolute truth. Just because a thought appears inside your mind does not mean it deserves your trust. Many people are suffering today not because life has destroyed them, but because they have been repeating the same negative story to themselves for years until it became their identity. Imagine carrying a cup of muddy water. If you keep shaking it constantly, the water will never become clear. This is exactly what happens when the mind is filled with fear, comparison, overthinking, and self-judgment. A disturbed mind cannot see reality clearly. It turns small failures into permanent defeat. It turns temporary pain into hopelessness. It turns uncertainty into fear. And the more a person listens to these thoughts without awareness, the more trapped they become inside an invisible prison of their own creation. The Buddha explained that the human mind behaves like a wild monkey jumping endlessly from one branch to another, unable to remain still. One moment it worries about the future, the next moment it regrets the past. It constantly searches for danger, criticism, rejection, and reasons to feel afraid. This is why an untrained mind naturally creates suffering even when no real danger exists. The problem is not that negative thoughts appear. The problem is that most people immediately believe them and allow those thoughts to control their emotions, actions, and entire direction in life. Think about how many opportunities people lose simply because their minds convinced them they were not capable. How many dreams disappear because fear spoke louder than courage. How many talented people remain invisible because self-doubt became stronger than their belief in themselves. A person can have intelligence, talent, beauty, and potential, but if their mind constantly tells them they are worthless, they will live far below what they are capable of becoming. This is why awareness is one of the most important teachings in Buddhism. Awareness allows you to observe your thoughts without becoming controlled by them. Instead of immediately reacting to fear, you begin watching it calmly. Instead of obeying every negative voice in your head, you begin questioning it. You start realizing that thoughts come and go like clouds passing through the sky. Some clouds are dark, some are light, but none of them stay forever. In the same way, emotions, fears, and doubts are temporary experiences. They only gain power when you attach yourself to them. The moment you learn to sit quietly and observe your own mind, something incredible begins to happen. You start separating yourself from the noise inside your head. You realize that there is a deeper part of you beneath the fear, beneath the anxiety, beneath the self-doubt, a calm awareness that simply watches, and in that moment, you understand a life-changing truth. You are not your fear. You are not your insecurity, and you are not the negative voice constantly speaking inside your mind. The Buddha taught that mastering the mind is the beginning of freedom because an uncontrolled mind can destroy a person more painfully than any external enemy ever could. A fearful mind creates suffering even in peaceful situations. An angry mind turns small problems into endless battles. A doubtful mind destroys opportunities before they even begin. But a disciplined and aware mind becomes peaceful, focused, and powerful. It stops reacting emotionally to every passing thought and begins choosing wisdom instead of fear. This does not mean negative thoughts will disappear forever. Even the strongest minds experience moments of fear and uncertainty. The difference is that wise people do not allow those thoughts to control their lives. They acknowledge them, observe them, and let them pass without surrendering their power. They understand that thoughts are visitors, not masters. Your mind can become your greatest prison or your greatest source of strength, depending on whether you learn to control it or allow it to control you. And the first step toward inner strength is realizing that not every thought deserves your belief. The voice telling you that you are weak, broken, or incapable is not the voice of truth. It is only the voice of fear speaking from old wounds, old failures, and old conditioning. The moment you stop believing every negative thought, you begin reclaiming your power, and that is where true transformation begins. Lesson 2. Pain is necessary for growth. One of the hardest truths to accept in life is that pain is unavoidable. Every human being, no matter how rich, intelligent, spiritual, or successful they appear, will eventually experience suffering. There will be moments of heartbreak, rejection, loneliness, failure, uncertainty, betrayal, and loss. Most people spend their entire lives trying to escape these experiences because they believe pain is a sign that something has gone wrong. But the Buddha taught a completely different perspective. He taught that suffering is not always a punishment. Sometimes suffering is the very force that awakens a human being and transforms them into someone wiser, stronger, and more conscious. The problem is that modern society teaches people to avoid discomfort at all costs. People are taught to seek constant pleasure, endless entertainment, instant gratification, and quick emotional relief. The moment life becomes difficult, many immediately search for distractions. They bury themselves in noise, social media, unhealthy habits, toxic relationships, or endless overthinking because sitting with pain feels unbearable. But the pain never truly disappears. It simply hides deeper inside the mind and quietly controls their emotions, decisions, and sense of self for years. The Buddha understood that pain itself is not what destroys people. What destroys people is their resistance to pain. When a person refuses to accept hardship as part of life, suffering becomes heavier. They begin asking questions like, "Why is this happening to me?" or "Why is my life so unfair?" These questions create bitterness and helplessness because the mind becomes trapped in victimhood instead of growth. But when a person changes their perspective and begins asking, "What is this experience trying to teach me?" something powerful begins to happen. Pain stops being an enemy and starts becoming a teacher. Think about how nature works. A seed must completely break apart beneath the darkness of the soil before it can grow into a tree. Gold must enter intense fire before it becomes pure. Diamonds are created under enormous pressure deep within the earth. Nothing strong is created without struggle. In the same way, human beings are shaped by difficulty. The strongest minds are not formed during comfortable moments when life is easy. They are formed during painful seasons when everything feels uncertain and the soul is forced to evolve. Many people pray for strength, confidence, wisdom, and peace, but they do not realize that life often develops these qualities through hardship. Confidence is built by surviving situations you once believed would destroy you. Patience is built through waiting. Wisdom is built through mistakes. Emotional strength is built through heartbreak and disappointment. Inner peace is built by learning how to remain calm while chaos exists around you. Without challenges, most people would never discover how powerful they truly are. The Buddha taught that suffering can awaken awareness because pain forces people to confront themselves honestly. During easy times, it is simple to remain distracted and unconscious. But during moments of loss, failure, or deep emotional pain, a person suddenly begins questioning everything. They begin searching for meaning. They begin realizing how fragile life is. They begin understanding what truly matters and what does not. In this way, suffering can become the doorway to transformation. Some of the wisest people you will ever meet are not wise because life was easy for them. They are wise because life humbled them. Pain softened their ego, deepened their understanding, and taught them compassion. A person who has truly suffered understands human emotions on a deeper level. They become less judgmental, more patient, and more aware of the silent battles others are fighting. Suffering often destroys arrogance and replaces it with humility and wisdom. But there is another important truth the Buddha wanted people to understand. Pain only transforms you when you face it consciously. If a person becomes consumed by anger, hatred, resentment, or self-pity, suffering can make them bitter instead of wiser. Some people allow painful experiences to close their hearts forever. They stop trusting, stop growing, and stop believing in themselves. But others use pain as fuel for awakening. They allow suffering to teach them discipline, resilience, compassion, and inner strength. The same storm that destroys one person can build another person into someone unbreakable. This is why mental resistance is so important. Every difficult moment in your life is testing the way you think. When life becomes painful, the mind immediately wants to escape. It wants comfort, certainty, and control. But growth happens when you remain present even during discomfort. A butterfly cannot become strong if someone breaks open the cocoon too early. The struggle itself is necessary because it develops the strength needed to survive. In the same way, your hardships are developing emotional muscles that comfort could never create. The Buddha also taught that attachment creates suffering because people become attached to the idea that life should always go according to their plans. But life is constantly changing. Relationships change, people leave, circumstances shift, success rises and falls. Nothing remains permanent. The more a person tries to control every outcome, the more suffering they experience when reality does not match their expectations. Inner peace comes from understanding that change is part of existence and that every painful season eventually passes. Sometimes the greatest transformation in your life begins during the moments when everything seems to be falling apart. What feels like destruction may actually be the breaking away of old patterns, old fears, old identities, and old limitations that were preventing your growth. Pain has a strange way of revealing truths that comfort hides. It shows you who truly cares about you. It reveals how strong you actually are. It forces you to discover courage you never knew existed inside you. There are people today who became stronger because life betrayed them. There are people who became wiser because they failed. There are people who found inner peace only after losing everything they thought they needed. And there are people who discovered their true purpose only after experiencing deep suffering. This is why the Buddha never taught people to fear pain. He taught them to understand it. The moment you stop seeing pain as proof that life is against you, you begin reclaiming your power. Your struggles are not always signs of weakness. Sometimes they are signs that life is preparing you for a higher level of growth. Every challenge you survive leaves behind wisdom. Every difficult season teaches resilience. Every painful experience carries the potential to awaken a stronger version of yourself. One day you may look back at the moments that almost broke you and realize they were also the moments that transformed you. Because sometimes the greatest gift life gives a person is not comfort, but the strength that is born through surviving hardship. Lesson 3. Stop seeking approval from others. One of the deepest chains that keeps human beings trapped in suffering is the constant need for approval from other people. Most individuals never truly live according to their own hearts because they are too busy trying to satisfy the expectations, opinions, judgments, and validations of the world around them. From childhood, people are conditioned to seek acceptance. They are praised when they behave in ways society approves of and criticized when they step outside those invisible boundaries. Slowly, without even realizing it, they begin shaping their entire identity around the reactions of others. They stop asking themselves, "What kind of life truly brings me peace?" and instead begin asking, "What will make people accept me?" The Buddha understood this struggle deeply because he saw that attachment to external approval creates endless suffering. A person who depends on others for validation can never experience true inner peace because their happiness is no longer under their own control. Their emotional state rises and falls based on praise, criticism, attention, rejection, social status, and comparison. If people admire them, they feel worthy. If people ignore them, they feel broken. Their sense of self becomes fragile because it is built on something unstable, the opinions of human beings whose thoughts constantly change. This is why so many people feel exhausted in modern life. They are not only carrying the weight of their responsibilities, fears, and struggles, they are also carrying the impossible burden of trying to be liked by everyone. They carefully filter their personalities to fit social expectations. They hide their true feelings to avoid judgment. They remain silent about their dreams because they fear criticism. Some even stay trapped in unhappy relationships, jobs, and lifestyles simply because they are terrified of disappointing others. Instead of living authentically, they become actors performing for approval while secretly feeling disconnected from themselves. The Buddha taught that seeking validation from the world is like trying to fill a bottomless cup. No matter how much approval you receive, it is never enough for long. The mind quickly becomes addicted to praise and recognition. A compliment feels good for a moment, but soon the craving returns again. People begin chasing attention the way thirsty travelers chase water in a desert. They constantly check whether others admire them, support them, or approve of their choices. But the more dependent they become on external validation, the weaker their inner foundation becomes. One of the harshest realities of life is that no matter how kind, talented, intelligent, genuine you are, there will always be people who misunderstand you, criticize you, judge you, or dislike you. This is unavoidable. The Buddha himself faced criticism, opposition, and doubt despite dedicating his life to compassion and wisdom. If even enlightened beings cannot escape judgment, how can ordinary people expect universal approval? The attempt to please everyone is not only impossible, it is spiritually destructive because it forces a person to abandon their authentic self in exchange for temporary acceptance. Many people lose themselves because they fear rejection more than they fear unhappiness. They remain trapped in environments that destroy their spirit because being judged feels more painful than living dishonestly. But slowly, this creates deep inner suffering. When a person constantly ignores their true desires, emotions, and purpose to satisfy others, they begin feeling empty inside. Their soul becomes divided between who they truly are and who they pretend to be for acceptance. Over time, this internal conflict creates anxiety, resentment, insecurity, and emotional exhaustion. The Buddha taught that true freedom begins the moment a person stops allowing other people's opinions to define their worth. This does not mean becoming cold, arrogant, or selfish. It means understanding that your value as a human being does not rise and fall according to the approval of others. Your worth is not determined by social status, popularity, attention, or validation. A diamond remains valuable even if nobody recognizes it. In the same way, your inner value remains unchanged even when others fail to appreciate you. Think about how dangerous it becomes when a person finally stops seeking permission to be themselves. They no longer waste energy pretending to fit into places where they do not belong. They no longer sacrifice their peace to satisfy people who are impossible to please. They stop comparing their journey to everyone else's path. Instead, they begin living from a place of authenticity, clarity, and inner confidence. This kind of freedom terrifies society because most people are emotionally controlled by external validation. A person who no longer depends on approval becomes difficult to manipulate. The modern world constantly encourages comparison. Social media especially has intensified the human obsession with validation. People compare their appearance, success, relationships, wealth, lifestyle, and achievements to carefully edited images of other people's lives. As a result, millions secretly feel inadequate because they are measuring their worth against unrealistic standards. The mind becomes trapped in endless competition, always feeling behind, always feeling not good enough. But comparison is a form of suffering because it blinds people to their own unique path. The Buddha taught that every individual walks a different journey through life. Some bloom early, some bloom late. Some face struggles others cannot see. Some move quickly, while others grow slowly through hardship. Comparing your life to another person's path is like comparing the moon to the ocean. Both are beautiful, but their purpose is completely different. Inner peace comes when you stop competing for validation and start focusing on becoming aligned with your own growth. Another painful truth is that people's opinions are often reflections of their own fears, insecurities, jealousy, conditioning, and limitations. Many people criticize others simply because they lack the courage to pursue their own dreams. Some project their pain onto others because they have never healed themselves. Others judge what they do not understand. If you build your identity around public opinion, you will constantly feel emotionally unstable because human judgment changes like the wind. The same people who praise you today may criticize you tomorrow. This is why wisdom requires emotional independence. The Buddha encouraged people to seek truth within themselves rather than constantly searching for external validation. When you spend time in silence, self-reflection and awareness, you begin discovering a deeper confidence that does not depend on applause. You begin trusting your inner compass instead of the noise of the crowd. This confidence is different from ego because it is rooted in peace rather than superiority. Ego constantly needs attention and recognition. Inner confidence remains calm even when nobody is watching. One of the most powerful moments in life is when a person finally realizes they do not need to prove their worth to everyone around them. They stop over-explaining themselves. They stop chasing people who cannot appreciate them. They stop shrinking themselves to make others comfortable. Instead, they begin honoring their own peace, values, and purpose. They understand that being misunderstood is sometimes the price of authenticity. There is a silent strength that appears when you no longer fear judgment. You begin taking risks you once avoided. You speak more honestly. You pursue dreams that once felt impossible. You stop living according to society's expectations and start living according to your soul's truth. This transformation changes everything because fear loses its control over you. The Buddha taught that attachment creates suffering, and attachment to approval is one of the strongest attachments of all. The moment you release the desperate need to be accepted by everyone, your spirit becomes lighter. You stop carrying the exhausting burden of performance. You stop betraying yourself for temporary validation. You stop abandoning your peace in exchange for approval that never truly satisfies. And eventually, you discover something life-changing. The more you accept yourself completely, the less power the opinions of others have over your life. That is where real freedom begins. Not when the world finally approves of you, but when you no longer need it to. Lesson 4. Discipline creates inner power. One of the greatest illusions people believe is that success, peace, confidence, and strength are created by motivation alone. Modern society constantly glorifies motivation because motivation feels exciting. It creates temporary emotional energy that makes people feel powerful for a short moment. A person watches an inspiring video, reads a powerful quote, listens to emotional music, or becomes excited about changing their life. In that moment, they truly believe transformation has begun. But after a few days, the excitement fades, distractions return, old habits reappear, and the person slowly falls back into the same patterns that once controlled them. This is why so many people remain trapped in cycles of inconsistency. They rely on feelings instead of discipline. The Buddha taught that true transformation is not built through temporary emotion, but through consistent practice repeated over time. A peaceful mind is not created in one day. Inner strength is not created through one moment of courage. Wisdom is not built through one inspiring experience. Everything meaningful in life is shaped slowly through repetition, patience, awareness, and self-discipline. Just as a river carves through stone, not because of force, but because of continuous movement, discipline shapes human character through daily action. Most people underestimate the power of small, repeated behaviors because they are obsessed with immediate results. They want instant confidence, instant success, instant healing, and instant change. But nature itself does not work this way. Trees do not grow overnight. Mountains are not formed in a single moment. The strongest temples are built brick by brick over long periods of time. In the same way, human beings are transformed through small daily actions that appear insignificant in the beginning, but become life-changing over time. Discipline is difficult because it requires acting correctly even when emotions resist. The mind naturally seeks comfort, pleasure, distraction, and ease. It avoids discomfort whenever possible. When a person feels tired, the mind says, "Rest today." When life becomes painful, the mind says, "Escape this feeling." When challenges appear, the mind says, "Quit before you fail." An undisciplined mind constantly follows whatever feels easiest in the moment, but this creates long-term weakness because temporary comfort often leads to future suffering. The Buddha understood that an uncontrolled mind becomes the source of endless suffering because it reacts impulsively to emotions, cravings, fears, and desires. This is why monks dedicate themselves to disciplined practice. They wake early, meditate consistently, train their awareness daily, and live with intentional simplicity. Their strength does not come from talent alone, it comes from mastering themselves repeatedly over time. Every disciplined action strengthens the mind the same way exercise strengthens the body. Think about how powerful it becomes when a person starts keeping promises to themselves. Most people constantly break their own word. They say they will change tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. They promise themselves they will become healthier, more focused, more peaceful, or more disciplined. But then emotions take control again. Slowly, this weakens self-trust. Deep inside, they stop believing in themselves because their actions repeatedly contradict their intentions. This creates internal frustration and disappointment. But discipline rebuilds self-respect. Every time you follow through on a commitment, even a small one, you strengthen your relationship with yourself. Every time you choose growth over excuses, your identity begins changing. Confidence is not created by positive thinking alone. Real confidence is built when you prove to yourself repeatedly that you can trust your own actions. A disciplined person walks differently through life because they know they can rely on themselves even during difficult moments. One of the reasons discipline feels painful is because it forces a person to confront resistance. Resistance appears whenever growth begins. The moment you try to improve your life, the mind fights back. Laziness appears, doubt appears, fear appears, distraction becomes stronger. Suddenly everything feels difficult. Many people interpret this resistance as a sign to stop, but in reality resistance often means transformation is beginning. The old version of you is fighting to survive while the stronger version is trying to emerge. The Buddha taught that mastery over the self is one of the highest forms of power. Most people think power means controlling other people, gaining wealth or achieving status, but external power means nothing if a person cannot control their own impulses, emotions, and habits. A person who cannot control anger becomes controlled by anger. A person who cannot control desire becomes controlled by craving. A person who cannot control distraction becomes controlled by the world around them. True freedom begins when a person becomes capable of governing their own mind. Discipline creates emotional stability because it teaches the mind not to depend on temporary feelings. An undisciplined person only acts when they feel motivated, inspired, or emotionally ready. But life does not wait for emotional readiness. Some days will feel heavy. Some mornings will feel exhausting. Some seasons of life will feel painful and uncertain. Discipline allows a person to continue moving forward even when emotions become unstable. It creates inner structure during chaos. This is why disciplined people often appear calmer and stronger than others. Their lives are not controlled entirely by emotional impulses. They have trained themselves to remain focused even when distractions tempt them. They continue practicing even when progress feels slow. They continue growing even when nobody notices. Over time, this consistency creates enormous inner power because small disciplined actions compound into massive transformation. Imagine two individuals standing at the beginning of life. One constantly chooses comfort, distraction, excuses, and avoidance. The other consistently chooses discipline, learning, patience, and self-control. At first, their lives may appear similar, but after years pass, the difference becomes enormous. One develops resilience, wisdom, confidence, emotional control, and strength. The other becomes trapped in regret, inconsistency, and unrealized potential. Tiny daily decisions eventually shape entire destinies. The Buddha also taught the importance of balance because discipline is not punishment. Many people misunderstand discipline and turn it into self-hatred or extreme control. True discipline is an act of self-respect, not self-destruction. It means caring about your future enough to make wise decisions today. It means protecting your peace, your health, your energy, and your purpose from things that weaken your spirit. Discipline is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming intentional. There is something deeply spiritual about self-discipline because it requires awareness. Every moment becomes a choice between the higher self and the lower impulses of the mind. One voice says, stay comfortable. Another voice says, grow. One voice seeks temporary pleasure. Another seeks long-term peace. The person you become depends on which voice you feed repeatedly over time. Many people wait for life to change before they begin changing themselves. But the Buddha taught that external transformation begins internally first. The quality of your life reflects the quality of your habits, your thoughts, and your actions. Discipline slowly purifies the mind because it removes chaos and strengthens awareness. A disciplined mind becomes sharper, calmer, more focused, and less easily controlled by emotion or distraction. The most dangerous person in the world is not the loudest, richest, or most admired person. The most dangerous person is the one who has mastered themselves. The person who can remain calm under pressure. The person who can control emotions without suppressing them. The person who continues moving forward despite fear, pain, boredom, or uncertainty. This kind of inner power cannot be taken away because it is built from within. There will be days when discipline feels exhausting, days when growth feels invisible, days when you question whether your efforts matter. But every small act of discipline is shaping your future in ways you cannot yet fully see. Every moment you resist distraction, every moment you choose awareness over impulse, every moment you continue despite difficulty, you are strengthening the foundation of your character. And eventually, one day you will wake up and realize that the habits which once felt difficult have become part of who you are. The discipline that once required effort has transformed into inner strength. The person who once struggled to control their mind has become calm, focused, and resilient. This is the quiet power of discipline. It changes lives slowly until suddenly everything is different. Lesson 5. Silence is a superpower. One of the greatest tragedies of modern life is that most people have completely lost the ability to sit alone in silence with their own minds. Everywhere you look, the world is overflowing with noise. Phones constantly vibrate with notifications. Endless streams of information flood the mind every second. Social media competes for attention. Music fills empty spaces. Conversations never stop. Entertainment follows people everywhere they go. Even during moments that should be peaceful, many individuals instinctively reach for distraction because silence itself has started to feel uncomfortable. Humanity has become so addicted to noise that many people no longer realize how deeply disconnected they are from themselves. The Buddha understood thousands of years ago that silence is not emptiness. Silence is where clarity begins. He taught that a restless mind cannot see reality clearly because constant mental noise clouds awareness. Most human beings are so consumed by overthinking, fear, emotional reactions, comparison, cravings, and endless distractions that they rarely experience true stillness. Their minds jump constantly between regrets about the past and anxieties about the future. Even when their bodies are resting, their thoughts continue racing without pause. This constant inner noise slowly drains emotional energy, weakens concentration, increases suffering, and disconnects people from inner peace. Silence frightens many people because silence forces them to confront themselves honestly. When distractions disappear, hidden emotions rise to the surface. Pain that was ignored becomes visible, insecurity becomes louder, loneliness appears, fear begins speaking. This is why so many individuals constantly seek stimulation. Noise becomes an escape from self-awareness. A person may spend years distracting themselves without realizing they are running from unresolved emotions living inside their own mind. But the Buddha taught that healing begins the moment a person stops escaping themselves. True transformation requires the courage to sit quietly and observe the mind without judgment. In silence, you begin noticing thoughts that normally control you unconsciously. You begin recognizing how fear repeats itself. You notice how the ego constantly seeks validation, control, and attention. You observe how anger, jealousy, anxiety, and desire move through the mind like waves. And through this awareness, something extraordinary begins to happen. You slowly stop becoming controlled by every passing emotion. Most people think strength means being loud, dominant, aggressive, or emotionally reactive. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. Real strength is the ability to remain calm when chaos surrounds you. Real power is emotional control. A person who cannot control their reactions is easily manipulated by circumstances, criticism, fear, and other people's behavior. But a calm mind becomes incredibly difficult to disturb because it no longer reacts impulsively to every external situation. This is one of the hidden reasons monks practice silence and meditation for years. Meditation is not simply about relaxation, it is training for the mind. Every moment spent observing thoughts without reacting strengthens awareness. Over time, the mind becomes less restless, less reactive, and more disciplined. The storms inside begin calming. A person who once felt controlled by anxiety gradually learns how to remain centered, even during difficulty. Silence becomes a source of inner stability instead of discomfort. Think about a lake during a violent storm. When the water is disturbed, it becomes impossible to see clearly beneath the surface. But when the lake becomes still, everything underneath becomes visible. The human mind works the same way. A constantly distracted mind cannot access wisdom clearly because emotional turbulence distorts perception. But through silence and stillness, clarity emerges naturally, solutions appear, understanding deepens, emotional wounds become visible. Wisdom that was hidden beneath mental noise slowly rises to the surface. The modern world often mistakes busyness for importance. Many people are constantly occupied, yet internally lost. They move endlessly from one distraction to another, without ever slowing down long enough to ask themselves meaningful questions. Who am I beneath my social identity? What truly brings me peace? What kind of life am I creating through my habits and thoughts? What fears are secretly controlling my decisions? Without silence, these questions remain buried beneath endless activity. The Buddha taught that awareness is the path to awakening, and silence strengthens awareness. When you spend time alone without distractions, you begin reconnecting with parts of yourself that noise has drowned out for years. You become more conscious of your emotions instead of unconsciously reacting to them. You become more intentional with your words, your actions, and your energy. Silence creates space between stimulus and reaction, and within that space lies freedom. One of the reasons emotionally reactive people suffer so deeply is because they respond immediately to every feeling that arises. Anger appears and they explode. Fear appears and they panic. Criticism appears and they become defensive. Sadness appears and they collapse emotionally. Their inner world controls them completely because there is no awareness separating them from their emotions. But silence trains the ability to pause, and that pause changes everything. A calm mind can think clearly even during stressful situations. A calm mind does not become consumed by every insult or challenge. A calm mind makes wiser decisions because it is not blinded by emotional intensity. This is why silence is such a powerful form of inner strength. It allows a person to respond consciously rather than react impulsively. There is also a deep spiritual truth hidden inside silence. Silence reconnects you to the present moment. Most suffering exists because the mind is trapped somewhere else. It replays painful memories from the past or imagines fearful scenarios about the future. Rarely does it fully experience the present, but silence anchors awareness into the now. You begin noticing your breath, your surroundings, your thoughts, and your existence itself with greater clarity. The present moment becomes more alive, and within that awareness, peace naturally begins to emerge. Many people search for peace externally through money, relationships, achievement, or status, believing external success will finally quiet the chaos inside them. But the Buddha taught that true peace cannot be found outside because external conditions constantly change. Wealth disappears, relationships shift, success rises and falls. Nothing external remains permanent. A person who depends entirely on external conditions for peace will remain emotionally unstable. Lasting peace must be cultivated internally through awareness, acceptance, and stillness. This is why some of the happiest people in history lived with very little materially yet possessed extraordinary inner peace. Their joy did not depend entirely on external stimulation because they had learned how to access calmness within themselves. Meanwhile, many individuals surrounded by luxury continue suffering internally because their minds remain restless and undisciplined. Without inner silence, external success cannot create lasting fulfillment. Silence also reveals truth. In noisy environments, people often lose themselves trying to follow the expectations of society. But when you spend enough time in stillness, you begin hearing your authentic inner voice more clearly. You begin realizing which desires are truly yours and which were imposed by others. You become more honest with yourself. You stop blindly chasing things that do not align with your soul. Silence strips away illusion and exposes what genuinely matters. Another reason silence is so powerful is because it teaches emotional endurance. Many people cannot tolerate uncomfortable feelings for even a few moments before escaping through distraction, but silence strengthens the ability to sit with discomfort without immediately reacting. This develops enormous psychological resilience because the mind gradually learns that emotions are temporary waves, not permanent realities. Fear rises and falls, sadness rises and falls, anxiety rises and falls. Through awareness, a person realizes they do not need to become controlled by every emotional experience. The Buddha often emphasized the importance of right speech, teaching that words carry energy and consequences. Silence helps people become more conscious of their speech. Instead of speaking impulsively, they begin speaking intentionally. They learn that not every opinion needs to be expressed, not every argument deserves energy, and not every emotional reaction requires immediate response. A person who has mastered silence often speaks with greater wisdom because their words emerge from awareness rather than emotional chaos. There is something deeply powerful about a person who can remain peaceful in silence. Such individuals are no longer desperate for constant attention, validation, or stimulation. They no longer fear being alone because they have become comfortable within themselves. Their energy feels grounded, stable, and calm. They carry a quiet strength that others naturally notice even without words. The world trains people to constantly look outward for answers, But silence teaches you to look inward, and within yourself lies a depth of wisdom, clarity, and strength that noise can never reveal. This is why silence is not weakness. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is one of the greatest superpowers a human being can develop, because within silence the mind becomes clear, the spirit becomes lighter, and the soul finally begins to awaken. Lesson 6. Let go of the past. One of the heaviest burdens a human being can carry is not physical pain, financial struggle, or external hardship. The heaviest burden is an unhealed past that continues living inside the mind long after the moment itself has disappeared. Many people are no longer suffering because of what happened to them years ago. They are suffering because they continue reliving those experiences every single day in their thoughts. The event may have ended long ago, but emotionally they remain trapped inside it. Their body exists in the present, but their mind remains chained to old wounds, old failures, old betrayals, old regrets, and old versions of themselves that no longer exist. The Buddha taught that attachment is one of the primary causes of suffering, and one of the strongest attachments human beings hold is attachment to the past. People become attached to painful memories, attached to old identities, attached to mistakes, attached to anger, attached to guilt, and attached to emotional pain. They replay certain moments repeatedly in their minds, hoping somehow the past will change if they think about it long enough. But no amount of overthinking can rewrite yesterday. The past has already disappeared, yet millions continue sacrificing their peace to experiences that no longer exist outside their own memory. Many individuals secretly punish themselves for years because of mistakes they made during periods of confusion, immaturity, fear, or emotional pain. They look back at older versions of themselves with hatred and shame. They constantly think, "I should have done better, I ruined everything, or I wasted so much time." But the Buddha understood something deeply compassionate about human beings. Every person acts according to their level of awareness at that moment in time. People make mistakes because they are unconscious, wounded, afraid, conditioned, or lost. This does not excuse harmful behavior, but it explains why self-hatred never creates healing. A person cannot heal while constantly attacking themselves internally. Think about how strange it is that people often show more compassion to strangers than they do to themselves. Someone else makes a mistake and they say, "Nobody is perfect." But when they themselves fail, they carry guilt for years. They replay conversations repeatedly at night. They relive embarrassing moments. They obsess over opportunities they missed. Slowly, regret becomes part of their identity. Instead of learning from the past, they become imprisoned by it. The Buddha taught that life is constantly changing. Every moment passes away and becomes something new. The person you were 5 years ago no longer exists completely. Your thoughts have changed. Your understanding has changed. Your experiences have changed. Even your body has changed. Yet many people continue defining themselves entirely by who they used to be. They refuse to let themselves evolve because they are emotionally attached to an outdated identity built from pain and regret. This attachment creates enormous suffering because it prevents transformation. A person who constantly tells themselves, "I am broken, I always fail, or I can never change," eventually begins living according to those beliefs. The mind clings to familiar pain because familiarity feels safer than uncertainty. Even suffering can become comfortable when a person has carried it long enough. This is why some people unconsciously hold on to sadness, anger, or victimhood for years. Letting go would require becoming someone new, and change can feel terrifying. But Buddhism teaches that freedom becomes possible when a person accepts impermanence fully. Nothing in life remains the same forever. Seasons change, emotions change, circumstances change, relationships change, human beings change, pain itself changes, no storm lasts forever. Even the darkest periods of life eventually pass, yet the mind often resists this truth because it desperately tries to hold on to what is already gone. The more tightly a person clings to the past, the more suffering they create for themselves. One of the most painful forms of attachment is attachment to emotional wounds caused by other people. Betrayal, rejection, abandonment, humiliation, and heartbreak can leave scars that shape the way individuals see themselves and the world. Some people become emotionally guarded for the rest of their lives because someone once hurt them deeply. Others stop trusting completely because they fear experiencing pain again. Instead of healing, they build emotional walls around their hearts. But these walls not only block future pain, they also block love, connection, joy, and growth. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like grasping a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. The longer you hold it, the more you burn yourself. Many people secretly believe resentment protects them, but in reality, resentment slowly poisons the mind. It keeps painful experiences alive internally. Forgiveness does not mean pretending harm never happened or allowing toxic behavior to continue. Forgiveness means refusing to let the past continue controlling your inner peace. This is one of the hardest spiritual lessons because pain often becomes part of a person's identity. Some individuals no longer know who they are without their suffering. They have repeated their story of pain so many times that they unconsciously build their personality around it. But healing requires the courage to release old identities and step into a new version of yourself. You cannot fully embrace the future while emotionally dragging the weight of yesterday behind you. The Buddha encouraged awareness because awareness allows people to observe their suffering without becoming consumed by it. When you become conscious of how often your mind returns to old memories, you begin realizing how much energy is being wasted on things that cannot be changed. Every moment spent trapped in regret is a moment stolen from your present life. The present moment is the only place where peace, healing, action, and transformation can actually occur. But many individuals abandon the present repeatedly because their minds remain addicted to the past. Think about how often people mentally time travel into painful memories even during peaceful moments. They may be sitting safely in their home, yet emotionally they are reliving arguments from years ago. Their body is here, but their mind is elsewhere. This disconnect creates ongoing suffering because the nervous system reacts to remembered pain as if it is still happening. The body cannot always distinguish between a real threat and an imagined one created by memory. This is why unresolved emotional pain continues affecting mental and physical health long after the original event has ended. The Buddha taught that awareness of the present moment weakens attachment to the past. When you become fully present, you begin noticing life as it actually exists now, instead of viewing reality entirely through old wounds. You notice your breath, you notice the people around you, you notice opportunities for growth, gratitude, and peace that suffering previously blinded you from seeing. The present becomes alive again. But letting go does not happen instantly. Healing is often slow and deeply uncomfortable because the mind resists releasing familiar pain. Some wounds take years to fully process. Some losses leave permanent emotional marks. Buddhism does not teach emotional suppression or pretending pain never existed. Instead, it teaches acceptance. Acceptance means acknowledging what happened honestly without allowing it to define your entire existence forever. There is a profound difference between remembering the past and living inside it. Wise people learn from painful experiences without building their identity around them. They carry the wisdom forward, but release the emotional chains attached to the memory. They stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "How can this experience help me grow?" Through this shift, suffering gradually transforms into wisdom. Many of the strongest people in the world are individuals who once carried enormous pain but eventually chose healing instead of bitterness. They realized that constantly reopening old wounds was destroying their ability to fully live. They understood that peace requires surrendering the endless mental battle with the past. And slowly, through awareness, forgiveness, patience, and self-compassion, they began freeing themselves. The Buddha understood that clinging to the past is like trying to hold on to flowing water. The tighter you grip it, the more it slips through your fingers. Life keeps moving whether you accept it or not. Every sunrise is another opportunity to begin again. Every breath is another chance to release old pain. Every present moment contains the possibility of transformation. One of the greatest acts of courage is allowing yourself to move forward without carrying hatred for who you used to be. You are not the same person who made those mistakes. You are not permanently defined by your worst moments. You are not required to remain trapped inside old pain forever. Growth means allowing yourself to evolve beyond the suffering that once shaped you. And perhaps the most beautiful truth of all is this: the moment you finally let go of the past, you create space for peace to enter your life again. The energy once consumed by regret becomes available for healing. The mind that was once trapped in memory becomes capable of experiencing the present fully. The heart that was once heavy becomes lighter, because true freedom does not come from changing the past. True freedom comes from no longer allowing the past to control your mind. Lesson 7. The life you want begins inside you. One of the greatest illusions human beings believe is that happiness, peace, strength, and fulfillment exist somewhere outside themselves. From the moment people are born, society teaches them to search externally for everything they desire. They are told that success will make them happy, money will make them secure, relationships will complete them, status will make them important, and recognition will make them valuable. As a result, millions spend their entire lives chasing external achievements while secretly feeling empty inside. They keep believing that the next accomplishment, the next possession, the next relationship, or the next moment of validation will finally give them the peace they have been searching for. But even after obtaining many of these things, the inner emptiness often remains. The Buddha understood this human struggle deeply. He saw that people were searching for fulfillment in places where lasting fulfillment could never truly exist, because everything external is temporary. Wealth can disappear, beauty fades, relationships change, social status rises and falls, public opinion shifts constantly. Even the body itself eventually ages and weakens. If a person builds their identity entirely around temporary things, suffering becomes inevitable because life itself is always changing. This is why the Buddha taught that true peace cannot be found solely through external circumstances. It must first be cultivated within. Most people unknowingly live as prisoners of the external world. Their emotional state depends entirely on what happens around them. If life goes according to their expectations, they feel happy. If problems appear, they collapse emotionally. If people praise them, they feel worthy. If people reject them, they feel broken. Their inner world becomes completely controlled by external conditions. But the Buddha taught that this dependency creates suffering because external reality can never remain perfectly stable forever. The world constantly changes, and anyone whose peace depends entirely on external stability will remain emotionally fragile. This is why some people possess enormous wealth yet continue living with anxiety, loneliness, emptiness, and fear, while others who own very little radiate peace, gratitude, and inner calm. The difference is not always external circumstances. The difference is the condition of the mind. A peaceful mind creates peace even in difficult situations. A restless mind creates suffering even in comfortable situations. This is one of the deepest truths Buddhism teaches. Your experience of life is shaped less by external events and more by the state of your consciousness. Many individuals spend years trying to change the world around them without ever learning how to transform themselves internally. They constantly attempt to control people, circumstances, outcomes, and future events because they believe external control will finally create inner peace. But no matter how hard a person tries, life will never obey every expectation. Unexpected loss will happen. Difficult people will appear. Failure will occur. Pain will enter life at times without warning. The person who depends entirely on external control eventually becomes exhausted because reality itself cannot be fully controlled. The Buddha taught that true strength begins when a person stops trying to control everything outside themselves and instead learns to master their own mind. This inner mastery changes everything because it creates stability that external chaos cannot easily destroy. A person who has trained their mind remains grounded even during uncertainty. They experience pain without becoming consumed by it. They face challenges without losing themselves completely. They no longer collapse emotionally every time life becomes difficult because their inner foundation has become stronger than external conditions. Think about how many people spend their lives searching for confidence while secretly believing confidence is something other people naturally possess. But confidence is not something magically given to a lucky few. Real confidence is built internally through repeated action, self-awareness, discipline, resilience, and courage. Every time you face fear instead of avoiding it, you strengthen yourself. Every time you continue despite uncertainty, your inner foundation grows stronger. Every time you survive pain, your understanding deepens. Confidence is created slowly through the relationship you build with yourself over time. The Buddha understood that human beings possess extraordinary potential within them, but most never discover it because they remain trapped in fear, distraction, conditioning, and self-doubt. Many people underestimate themselves for years because they constantly compare their lives to others. They see only their weaknesses while ignoring their strength. They focus entirely on what they lack while remaining blind to what already exists inside them. The mind becomes so conditioned to negativity that people forget how powerful awareness, discipline, compassion, patience, and inner peace truly are. One of the most important spiritual awakenings occurs when a person finally realizes they are not powerless victims of life. While external events cannot always be controlled, the way you respond internally can always be trained. This realization changes the entire direction of a human life. Instead of waiting for the world to become perfect before feeling peaceful, a person begins creating peace within themselves first. Instead of waiting for fear to disappear completely before taking action, they learn how to move forward despite fear. Instead of depending entirely on others for love and validation, they begin developing self-respect and inner stability. The Buddha often emphasized that the mind itself can become either heaven or hell depending on how it is trained. An uncontrolled mind creates endless suffering through fear, attachment, anger, jealousy, regret, and craving. But a disciplined and aware mind creates clarity, compassion, peace, and wisdom. This is why inner work is so important. The quality of your thoughts shapes the quality of your reality. A mind consumed by negativity will eventually see negativity everywhere. A peaceful mind begins seeing opportunities for gratitude, growth, and meaning, even during difficult times. Most people search for purpose externally, as if purpose is hidden somewhere far away, waiting to be discovered. But often purpose begins emerging naturally when a person becomes deeply aligned with themselves internally. The more connected you become to your own awareness, values, and truth, the more clearly your direction in life begins revealing itself. Inner clarity creates outer direction, but without silence and self-awareness, many individuals spend years chasing goals that society told them should matter, while secretly feeling disconnected from their own souls. Another powerful truth Buddhism teaches is that every human being already contains the seeds of awakening within them. Peace is not something you must import from the outside world. Wisdom is not something reserved only for monks or spiritual masters. Strength is not limited to people who appear fearless. The potential for transformation already exists inside you, but like a seed buried beneath the ground, that potential must be nurtured carefully through awareness, discipline, patience, and practice before it fully blooms. Many people sabotage their own growth because they become impatient with themselves. They expect instant healing, instant clarity, and instant transformation. But inner growth often happens invisibly at first. Just because you cannot immediately see progress does not mean transformation is not occurring. A tree grows roots underground long before its growth becomes visible above the surface. In the same way, Your daily efforts to heal, grow, reflect, and strengthen your mind are changing you internally, even when results feel slow. The Buddha taught that awakening is not about becoming someone completely different. It is about removing the illusions, fears, attachments, and unconscious patterns hiding your true nature. Beneath fear there is awareness. Beneath insecurity there is peace. Beneath confusion there is wisdom. Beneath suffering there is the possibility of freedom. But these qualities only emerge when a person begins turning inward instead of endlessly searching outside themselves for completion. One of the most tragic things in life is that many people die without ever realizing how much strength they actually possessed. They spend years believing they are weak simply because they experienced pain, but surviving pain itself is proof of strength. They believe they are failures because life did not unfold exactly according to their expectations. They compare their journey to others and conclude they are behind, broken, or inadequate. But every human being walks a different path, faces different battles, and grows at a different pace. The Buddha never taught perfection, because perfection is impossible in human life. Instead, he taught awareness, compassion, and gradual transformation. A person does not become peaceful overnight. A person does not become fearless instantly. Inner mastery is developed slowly through conscious living. Every moment of awareness strengthens the mind. Every act of patience deepens wisdom. Every moment of self-control strengthens character. Transformation happens breath by breath, choice by choice, day by day. There is a profound freedom that appears when a person stops waiting for external circumstances to save them and begins cultivating strength internally instead. Suddenly, life no longer feels entirely controlled by fear, validation, or uncertainty. The person realizes that while pain may still exist, suffering no longer has absolute power over them. They become emotionally stronger because their peace is rooted internally rather than externally. This is why the Buddha taught that conquering yourself is greater than conquering thousands in battle. A person who has mastered their own mind possesses a strength the world cannot easily destroy. External situations may still rise and fall, but internally they remain centered. Their peace no longer disappears every time life becomes difficult because they have discovered something deeper than temporary comfort. They have discovered inner stability. And eventually, after enough awareness, struggle, healing, and growth, a person begins realizing something life-changing. The strength they were searching for was never completely outside them. The peace they desperately chased already existed quietly within them beneath the noise of fear and distraction. The confidence they wanted was built slowly through surviving life itself. The wisdom they admired in others was gradually awakening inside their own consciousness. The life you want does not begin the day the world finally changes for you. It begins the moment you begin changing the relationship you have with your own mind. It begins when you stop running from yourself and start understanding yourself. It begins when you stop waiting to become worthy and realize you already possess the potential for growth, peace, wisdom, and transformation within you. Because in the end, the greatest temple you will ever build is the one within your own mind. The Buddha once taught that no matter how dark the night becomes, the sunrise will always return. In the same way, no matter how lost, broken, exhausted, or uncertain you may feel right now, there is still light within you waiting to awaken. But most people spend their entire lives searching for that light in the outside world, while ignoring the power that already exists inside their own minds. They search for peace in possessions, for happiness in approval, for confidence in success, and for meaning in the opinions of others. Yet the more they chase these things without understanding themselves, the emptier they become. True transformation begins the moment a person turns inward, the moment they stop blaming the world for every wound and begin taking responsibility for healing themselves, the moment they stop running from pain and begin learning from it, the moment they stop seeking approval from everyone around them and begin trusting their own inner voice, the moment they stop allowing fear to control every decision and begin acting with awareness instead of doubt. This is the beginning of awakening. This is where real strength is born. Always remember this: your mind is the most powerful force in your life. If your mind is filled with fear, even peaceful situations will feel dangerous. If your mind is consumed by negativity, even beautiful moments will feel empty. But when the mind becomes calm, aware, and disciplined, life itself begins changing. Not because the outside world suddenly becomes perfect, but because you are no longer controlled by every storm around you. A peaceful mind can walk through chaos without losing itself. A disciplined mind can continue moving forward despite pain. A wise mind understands that every challenge carries the possibility of growth. There will still be difficult days. There will still be moments when fear returns, when pain feels heavy, when uncertainty clouds your thoughts, and when life tests your patience. Buddhism never teaches that awakening removes all suffering from life. Instead, it teaches that you can become strong enough to face suffering without being destroyed by it. The storms may continue appearing, but your ability to remain standing becomes greater. And that is true inner power. Never underestimate the importance of small daily actions. Every moment you choose awareness over unconscious reaction, you strengthen your mind. Every moment you choose discipline over excuses, you build character. Every moment you choose forgiveness over resentment, you free your spirit. Every moment you sit in silence instead of escaping yourself, you deepen your understanding. Transformation does not happen in one dramatic moment. It happens slowly through the choices you repeat every single day. One day, if you continue walking this path, you will notice something extraordinary. The things that once controlled you will begin losing their power. The opinions of others will no longer shake your confidence so easily. Fear will no longer stop you from taking action. Pain will no longer convince you that life is against you. The past will no longer define your identity. You will become calmer, wiser, stronger, and more peaceful, not because life became easier, but because you became stronger within yourself. And perhaps the greatest realization of all is this: the person you were searching for has been inside you the entire time. Beneath the fear, beneath the self-doubt, beneath the pain, beneath the noise of the world, there has always been a deeper part of you that is calm, aware, resilient, and capable of transformation. That version of you was never truly destroyed. It was only buried beneath unconscious thinking and emotional suffering. The journey of Buddhism is not about becoming someone else. It is about awakening the strength and wisdom that already exist within you. So stop doubting your worth. Stop believing every fearful thought your mind creates. Stop carrying the weight of yesterday into every new day of your life. You have survived pain before. You have survived uncertainty before. You have already overcome battles that once felt impossible. That strength still exists within you right now, even if you have forgotten it. Take a deep breath and remember this truth. Every new moment is another opportunity to begin again. The past does not control this moment unless you allow it to. Fear does not own your future unless you surrender to it. Your life can still change, your mind can still heal, your spirit can still awaken. But it begins with one decision: the decision to stop living unconsciously, the decision to stop being a prisoner of fear, the decision to finally master your own mind instead of being controlled by it. Because once you master your mind, you begin mastering your life. And that is the path to true freedom.